Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another discussion on this Embrace Stuttering channel, where we discuss aspects of stuttering, speak to experts from both the stuttering and non-stuttering worlds, just to give us a deeper insight into this complicated area. My guest today is Shane Murphy, and I just want to introduce Shane, who is an accredited therapist based in Cork, Ireland. He specialises in helping individuals and couples navigate challenging times to foster personal growth and self-improvement. His approach is rooted in the present, focusing on current experiences and emotions rather than delving into past traumas, as he believes that revisiting these can often lead to re-traumatization. His journey into psychotherapy began in later life, which has enriched his understanding that personal growth and self-awareness are always within reach. He holds a degree in psychotherapy and counselling from Middlesex University, equipping him with the knowledge and skills to provide compassionate and practical support. Shane assists clients dealing with anxiety, relationship issues, and childhood challenges. Additionally, he is a proud member of the Youghal Cancer Support Centre team, offering support to those impacted by cancer. In his sessions, Shane emphasizes empathy, understanding, and a non-judgmental attitude, creating a safe space for people to explore their thoughts and feelings. His goal is to help his clients gain self-awareness, manage stress effectively, and build resilience to face life's challenges. That is quite an impressive uh, resume. I just want to kind of lead on from that, and just start off with that your approach is rooted in the present, focusing on the current experiences and emotions rather than delving into past traumas. Could you possibly elaborate on that?
Yeah, no problem. Good evening, everybody. Fantastic to be here. Yeah, so I suppose a little bit of background insofar as I struggled with anxiety for 22 years of my life. And in my journey to free myself of anxiety, I developed different techniques and stuff. And I started seeing patterns around the fact that dealing with your past, when the person who's got anxiety, they have it now and they're feeling it now. So what's the point in actually going back to figure out their traumas in the past when you can figure them out now? So it's about learning to, like, when you're dealing with your feelings and emotions, you can only deal with them now. You can only deal with them today, at this very moment, these feelings and emotions. So bringing up your past, looking at any traumas that might have come in the past and bring them into the present tense, you are actually not dealing with it. You're dealing with your past emotions. So when you go into the past, when people might have talked about their traumas within their childhood, they're reliving and feeling those emotions and stuff from the past, which isn't the same way as actually trying to figure out their feelings and emotions in the present. So all my sessions are about helping the clients to actually figure out what exactly is going wrong. Most anxieties come from suppressed feelings and emotions and not knowing how to actually deal with them in the present. So it's about actually learning, teaching, coaching them to actually deal with their feelings and emotions in the present tense. And it's the only place to work.
Yes, that is really interesting. You've actually gone deep into anxiety and what causes that. Stuttering, many people suggest that is caused by anxiety. Well, not caused by anxiety, but anxiety can trigger stuttering. But my own experience shows that the anxiety is caused by the stuttering or by the fear of stuttering rather than the other way around. I mean, speaking as a person who stutters, I feel if I'm anxious about something, it doesn't necessarily cause me to stutter. But if I fear that I'm going to stutter somewhere or I'm going to be humiliated, that can cause anxiety. And you've suggested that anxiety is caused by uh, past emotions. Could you could you possibly explain that a bit further?
Yeah, so if you think of a death of a loved one or something like that when you were younger, and you've kind of pushed it away and you haven't really dealt with it, maybe because you were too young or maybe because life was too busy and stuff like that. So that emotion and that feeling around the loss of somebody hasn't been dealt with yet. So when they come into the present tense, they're feeling they've disconnected from their feelings and emotions. And because the feelings of those feelings and emotions are causing a distress within them. So, which causes them to actually worry and overthink about things in the future because of undealt with feelings and emotions within them. So, it's about learning to actually deal with those feelings and emotions in the present tense. So many different things can happen to us in our childhood. We can be bullied. We can have so many things that actually go wrong within our childhood. And we just don't deal with those feelings and emotions at the time, down to lots of things like mainly around the fact that it has never been explained to them about how to deal with their emotions. You would think of parents years ago who would have said things like, suck it up, you know, just suck it up and get on with life and don't worry about it. Whereas as human beings, we have to deal with our feelings and emotions. We have to allow ourselves to actually feel whatever is actually going on in that present moment, whatever is actually happening to us, fear, anger, and we have to allow ourselves to actually feel those emotions. But if we've never been told how to feel those feelings and emotions, if we don't know how to feel them, they all get jumbled up. We don't know if we're feeling anger, if we're feeling anxiety, if we're feeling sadness. We don't know. And I would say 90% of my clients I've dealt with so far have no idea how to actually, what this feeling is, putting a word to this feeling and actually knowing what this feeling is. So it's about learning how to express your feelings and emotions and letting them out.
What would you say the difference is between anxiety and fear?
Well, that's a quite an interesting. I would say there is, as you said yourself there, like I mean, around stuttering, around the fact that you wouldn't necessarily, when you feel anxious, stutter, but when you have the fear of the fact that you might stutter and how that would actually impact on other people, or you might be bullied, or you might be ridiculed, it's the fear that's actually bringing on the stuttering, which also brings on the anxiety. So fear aspect is huge within anxiety. I've clients who with panic attacks, they have the fear of actually having the panic attack, and they're thinking so much around the fear of having the panic attack actually happens. Whereas if they had no fear around the panic attack, they would not have any panic attack. So to a certain extent, as you mentioned, with stuttering, if you had no fear that the actual stutter is going to happen, you wouldn't have any anxiety and you more than likely might not stutter as bad. So fear is hugely linked within anxiety. But I suppose the question is which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the panic attack or the anxiety? Which came first, the stuttering or the anxiety? Where did the fear develop? And you would look at going back and actually looking and finding what I say is ground zero, which is the moment where something started, is your way to actually heal it. Because where it actually started from, and for most people, where it started from might not necessarily be their feelings. It might not necessarily be their emotions. It might be something that was put on them by their bullies, by parents, by brothers or sisters. So finding that actual ground zero, bringing it into the present, and actually then trying to figure out, oh, is this real or is this not real? So that kind of helps you to step away from the fear. So yeah, fear and anxiety is intricately linked.
One interesting phenomena that I've observed about my own stuttering is that I can often stutter and have blocked speech and struggle to get through the words, but not feel any related anxiety.
Okay.
So this is why I know that my own stuttering is not excuse me, is not often always linked to anxiety. Um, but speaking to other people who stutter, I know this is not the case with most people. The only reason I think I can separate the two is that, you know, I've done quite a fair bit of reflection, inner work, and journaling, etc. Um, what advice would you give to someone to someone who is, you know, in the middle of a stuttering episode, and is in a kind of a panic attack?
So, I mean, the first thing is to step out of the fear, step into the present moment. So fear is based on past tense. Fear is only based on what has actually happened in the past. So it's about bringing yourself into the present and concentrating on what's actually happening to you now, becoming aware of your feelings and emotions, and stepping into breath. And there's so many different styles of breath work that actually works and doesn't work. But I think the most basic one is to actually concentrate on breathing, that you're actually breathing in and breathing out, and let the panic attack or the stutter actually move through your body and actually come out the other side. Because between panic attacks and stuttering, and you experience it yourself, when you start into the mode of stuttering, you're actually starting to, as I say to people, you're starting to fall forward. So the panic is starting to come in, the expectation that this stutter is actually going to get worse. So it's about
I'm sorry, on you go finish up.
Yeah, so it's about bringing yourself into that moment and stepping away from that fear and thinking about the fact that today is, you know, today's date. I always say to people, know what date your day is and actually fall into the date of actually what today is, and actually remind yourself that you're in the moment and that you know that this stutter or this panic attack is actually going to dissipate. And most panic attacks or most stuttering attacks are only matters of 30 to 40 seconds, whereas it feels like it's going to actually last for a lot longer. So it's about learning different techniques to bring yourself into the present and stay away from the fear of the past.
You've actually touched on something very interesting in relation to stuttering, because as a person stutters, etc., when I block or have a stutter, 43 years of experiences flood into this moment. So when I'm blocking on a word or stuttering, I kind of regress years back when I was in my 20s, teens, and childhood. All that comes back, and your listener has no idea that he is being cast into the role of your father, of your school teacher, or your lecturer, and you've actually shed a very useful perspective on that. And I think now I'm beginning to understand what you mean about dealing with the present trauma rather than trying to fix 43 years of mess.
Yeah, you can't fix the feeling and emotion that you have that's coming up from when when you were bullied or when somebody got, because that feeling and emotion from back then is rooted in what age you were back then. So it's about bringing that fear or that what you're actually dealing with into the present, figuring out the feelings and emotions that they're wrapped in now, and letting it go. Just allow yourself to actually let it go in the present. The present tense is the most powerful place that you can operate in, and it is the only place to live in. The here and now, this very moment, this very time, this very second. As I say to most people, most average people sleep for 8 hours in a day. That's 16 hours left in a day. What do you do with those 16 hours? And it really resonates and brings in to the present tense. So when I'm working with a client where literally every time I talk about, and they might bring up something from the past, I go, okay, who are you in the present tense? Are you that person that you were back then? Or are you a stronger and better person now? Are you proud of the person you are now? And that really resonates and brings you in and can help you to step away from the fear of what was coming in for you. Does that make sense to you?
It makes absolute sense. And, speaking to you just now as a person who stutters, I feel that, from what you've said and from your presence, I feel that if any block comes up just now, I'll be able to deal with it just now. Just to share my own experience. When I was a child, stuttering and speech blocks, they start in childhood, etc. And I remember when I was a child, I was up and I was asked a question and I couldn't get the word out, and I think I was in the presence of, I know who this person was. I was in the presence of an elder family member, um, and he was getting frustrated and and he couldn't understand. He says, "I've asked you a simple question and I couldn't get any word out." So he says, "I'm going to." So he then slapped me. He says, "I'm going to," and I still couldn't get any words out. He says, "I'm going to slap you until you can at least scream," and I couldn't even scream that day. I couldn't get anything out. So then from then on, I started having this time restriction. I have to get the word out, and within this time restriction fast. And I started to put a lot of effort into my words. Like, for example, if I'm going to say something, I would visibly show my effort, like, making um effortful noises so I can make some kind of noise, which would then gain the approval of my listener. So I started to make sounds with my tongue, with my lips, because you want a sound. That's the only sound that I can make. But from what you said, that all, it could be left with revisiting and retouched. And this present moment, I don't know what time is it in Ireland, but it's 20 past 8 here. This moment, 17th June, 20 past 8 is all we have really.
Yeah.
And if a block will come up, if I can't get the word out, you're not going to put your hand through the screen and slap my head, like whatever. So yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Don't know if I'm on the right kind of track.
And it's really about stepping into, who am I as a man now? Am I any of what I was back then? Am I someone who lives a good life, who does good things in my life? You're sharing these YouTubes to actually help people to actually get away from their stuttering and stuff like that. Who are you? What do you represent in the present tense? Are you a strong person? And if you can step into that place, step into that power of who you are now and let go of the past. Forgive yourself for what you did in the past and actually step into who you are now and start figuring out the emotions and the feelings that you are feeling around your stuttering. And be you and enjoy being you. And whatever happens, happens, but you can only stay in the present tense and you can only be you now. And you now is the only person that matters. You are an extensionism of what is happening on the outside. You're a reflection of everything that's happening on the outside of you. So you can only be you now.
You know, anxiety is you know, there's different levels. I think you know, there's anxiety that you'll stutter and you'll in this context and that you make a fool of yourself, etc. Um, but I think what makes stuttering different, um, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's a lot of projection and trying to predict what the other person is thinking about you. Um, would you say that's correct, or whether is it not exclusive?
It's the same anxiety. It's the same in anxiety. People worry so much about what other people think of them, but it's in their head. For you, it's you're worrying about what someone else is thinking as you stutter. So it's actually happening in the present tense. It's more so in the present tense. It's more rooted in the now because your stuttering is happening now. Whereas with anxiety, they're worrying about what other people think before they say what they're about to say. So, I would imagine that you are, because you stuttered most of your life, you in the present tense, before you speak, you're worried that you might actually stutter before you speak. Whereas with people with anxiety, they worry that what they're about to say might be judged or someone might actually think that they're not talking the right way or they're not using the right words, or so many things can actually come along for so many people about it. So they are actually very similar, except yours is actually happening in a more vocal way. Theirs is in a more silent way within their head, which I don't know which is worse.
You know, I was reading a Facebook post yesterday. I did it in the podcast yesterday that someone posted, do people care if you stutter, listeners? And I think that encapsulates the mindset of people. And I think that's the wrong question to even ask in the first place.
Mm,
Um, because some people care, some don't.
mm,
And and the maddening thing about stuttering is that when normal speaking people, when they hear stuttering, they equate that to their own moments of stuttering when they're nervous or if they're lying. That's this is the thing that, but stuttering has such a negative impression in movies, stories,
mm.
life. You know, the stutterer is always the slow, stupid, liar, etc. And I think the movie King's Speech um changed a lot of perceptions uh, as well. Um, so coming back to stuttering, there's research, MRI scans, etc., that there's neurological differences between people who stutter and those who don't. So my understanding is that anxiety is a can be a trigger. Anxiety can be a trigger. Lack of sleep can be a trigger. The perception of danger can also be a trigger, and various things. You know, trying to uh, please the listener, fear of being judged, etc. Um, Regardless of whether you work with stutterers or not, that's not the point. I think experts who haven't um worked exclusively with stutterers can have a more um a more wider insight into why this happens. So the way I've described these triggers, do you think these are accurate?
Yeah, of course they are. Yeah, because you know, the stuttering, is actually happening to you in the present tense, as I say, it's happening to you. And, there's so much, you're right, preconceptions and stuff like that about what people, it triggers within them. It triggers for some people, there's that annoyance and stuff like that. And for some people, there is the thought that, if I got over it, how come you haven't got over it? How are you still attaching into your stuttering from your childhood? Have you grown up? And things, and all these kind of different preconceptions that people have around stuttering. And there is a multitude of different triggers. You're right, like, I mean, it's the same with, to a certain extent, with anxiety, where we're worrying so much, and that fear and being scared of it actually happening to us. The best thing to equate it to is anxiety towards panic attacks. You're stepping into it actually happening. You're visioning it actually happening. Wouldn't it be great in a world if we could live in a world where what happened yesterday doesn't matter, what happens tomorrow doesn't matter, what happens today is the only thing that you remember? The question is, would you have a stutter then?
Yes, yes. No, I understand completely. There are a couple of questions I want to ask you, but I think I need to get your view on something. What is the role of the I think it's called the limbic brain, or the reptilian brain,
Yeah.
anxiety and the stress responses?
Yeah, I mean, they're huge, like, you know what I mean? Cortisol and everything comes streaming through your body when you're stepping into anxiety. And the links between, as you say, the reptilian brain and what's actually happening to you, that how it wires, how it actually that actual electricity of that actual connection actually causes within your brain. It's a response. Like, I mean, for most ones, it's the actual physical response that actually happens in our body is what we respond to. Most people reach out to me for support because it's actually physically happening in their body. When it's actually happening in the mind level, they don't take the same. So when it actually fires and it actually causes that kind of distress within yourself, that's what actually brings up the huge amount of anxiety, brings up all the fear, and brings up the stuttering within yourself. So it's about the connections are huge. Obviously, everything that I work with is through kind of like Joe Dispenza, rewiring the brain and helping people actually rewire the brain. Bruce Lipton talks about rewiring the brain as well. So it's about figuring out the actual different ways that these connections, how we can change these connections without actually going in and actually going with a knife and operating on you.
Yes, it is very interesting that you talk about this, the cortisol and adrenaline, etc. Um, just to tell you a bit about stuttering and what it actually feels like, what people see is not what's going on inside. As you may already probably know, the stuttering, etc. That's the easy bit. That is the easy bit. But there are moments when, depending on many things, how much sleep I've had, who I'm talking to, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking about. Sometimes a particular word just will not come out. It will not come out. I mean, like, just for example, if I'm going to say a word, um, the word I'm going to say just now, okay, I'm having an actual block on it just now. The word is is emerald. Okay, so, and there's a reason why I've chosen this word emerald. So if I'm going to say the word emerald, I'm in a jewelry shop, and the person asks me what kind of a jewel I want. I said I would like an emerald, and the word emerald won't come out. So I could say or I could say but I can't say emerald. And it can be really frustrating. So after about 5 or 10 seconds of this, anxiety builds up and the shortness of breath, and there's a light sweat. There's a temptation to show the jeweler that I'm trying very hard. So you start making grunting noises. Now I'm still on the physical level just now. I've not even gone into the feelings of shame, guilt, self-loathing, embarrassment. That's to one side. This is just the physical part by itself. So I mean, the word block can be any word. It doesn't need to be a complex word. It could be the word I. It could be the word why, when, where. And this is where your expertise, I think, would be very useful, because this is pure anxiety. If we could eliminate the anxiety part from that, there's a chance that we can recover. What would you advise doing in that moment?
Well, first of all, the big thing that you're actually scared of, as you said, you're talking about the actual outside part that actually happens. But the big thing that you're scared of is actually sitting with those feelings and emotions. So it's about allowing yourself to sit with the guilt. So do you have guilt in the present moment about what's actually happening? Do you have shame in the present moment about what's actually happening? Do you feel shame in the moment? Is the shame about the actual stuttering? Which comes first, the shame or the stuttering? Or is the stuttering causing the shame? So it's about maybe trying to figure out what it actually, it's like what I said already. It's figuring out these feelings and these emotions. I would be tackling the actual feelings and the emotions that the person is getting, not what's actually happening. Because as you said, the stuttering is actually the finished product, basically. It's what's actually, so it's about stepping back into those feelings and emotions, figure out where that feeling of shame is actually coming from. And even though I'm saying the present tense, a lot of that shame is coming from stuttering that you might have actually done in the past. And it's about trying to figure out that shame, that guilt. Is that coming first? Do I feel this before I stutter? Is there association that I know that this word emerald or why or what or whatever word that is actually coming up, I know that this word is actually going to trigger shame in me. So how far back does shame go? Who is the person who actually feels shame? What age are you? The person who actually feels shame. So it's about doing a bit of work on these different words that actually come up for you and actually doing that work on those feelings and those emotions, doing the work on where shame is, because it's like what I was saying to you earlier on. Who are you in the present? Are you the person who's actually stuttering and feeling the shame in the present? Or is that 10-year-old you or 5-year-old you? So it's about, again, it's about bringing it back into the present and actually allowing yourself to actually express it, allowing yourself to step away from the shame, the guilt, and all those horrible feelings that are actually coming up for you. And why are they coming up for you? And why are you attached to them? There's an aspect of, of feelings and emotions. There's a part that people don't talk about around anxiety. I remember a client of mine recently saying to me, who am I without my anxiety? So who are you without your stutter? Who are you without your guilt and shame? Who are you? You know? I don't know, does that answer your question in the moment?
Yes, it does. It does. Um, so, so, so would you describe this approach as similar to what's known as somatic tracking, where you track your feelings and really, really feel them rather than distracting yourself?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're distracting yourself away from those feelings and emotions. You're distracting away from, our feelings, our emotions, our bodies are vibrating beings. We're vibrating people. And each feeling and emotion has its own vibration. And it's about figuring out that vibration of that actual feeling and emotion. And even if you have to track it back, but the key is to figure out, say shame. Shame is such a powerful, it's such a big one. As people describe it, it's disgusting. you know? And shame, where are you feeling the shame? Are you feeling it now? Or is that shame being pulled into the present? So you're right. It's about allowing yourself to sit with these feelings and emotions, noticing where these feelings and emotions are coming from. Are they coming from the past or are they in the present? Most negative emotions, and I don't like using the word the negative emotions because all our feelings and emotions operate within us for a reason. We have anger for a reason. We have sadness for a reason. We have shame for a reason. We have guilt for a reason. So they're not negative emotions. They're actually emotions. They're all emotions that we have to deal with, and they're there for a reason. So same as shame. Shame is there to actually, to actually allow yourself to actually feel it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be human. And it's so important to be human in the present tense. So it's quite traumatic. It's quite sitting deep with your feelings and emotions and allowing yourself to feel those feelings and emotions. So your example inside in the jewelry shop, like I would be suggesting that you allow yourself to actually sit with it and sit with what feelings and emotions are coming up and actually sit with, who am I now? Am I someone who can say this word, or am I someone who can't say this word because 10-year-old me is controlling me?
Just for the record, I've never been to a jewelry shop.
Okay.
I don't want any potential kidnappers. Look, I was watching the video and holding me for ransom. But
Violence, yeah.
that was just an example. Okay. I'm using my own examples because I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
And I hope whoever's listening can apply this to their own lives. I'm 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 really I'm really I'm really bad on the phone. When I'm making a phone call, there's a lot of circumlocution. Um, you know, I you know, I can't phone up and say, hi, this is so and so, and I want this and this and this. Um, Start off with, hi there, excuse me if you don't mind. No, it's more annoying than anything. So last week I had to go on a meeting for work. The uh, the meeting link it hadn't been sent to me. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna make this phone call now and I'm going to see what comes up. I'm not going to distract myself with unnecessary things. I'm going to say what I need to say. So then I picked up the phone and said hello, and I said, hi, this is such and such. I have a meeting at 10 o'clock. Could you send me the link? And there was tremendous tension within me. And I felt as if I was walking through some kind of glue. Um, and it was really difficult to even speak. But yeah, as if the way I can explain, when you're walking through quicksand, I was walking through with my speech. I was walking through quicksand, and there's all these. I don't know what was happening neurologically, but I was walking through quicksand. Like maybe not quick, like some kind of a sticky.
Mm.
Everything felt so sticky, but I felt so proud of myself because I I didn't deviate from what I
Mm.
wanted to say. I said what I wanted to say. I didn't change any words. I didn't deviate, but I said what I wanted to say. Um, yeah. Why am I sharing this? Because it felt good. It
Yeah.
felt good. Yeah. And afterwards, I rather than feeling bad about myself, I felt good.
Mm.
So don't know if you have any comments on that.
Well, you were you in the present tense then, weren't you? You made a conscious effort as you in the present tense to actually do this and do it right. You did not step into the past. You knew the mistakes that you'd made in the past where you got distracted or you overthought things. You literally went in, said what you wanted to say, and you were proud of yourself. So all that pride and everything and how you felt was all in the present tense. It was purely in the present tense. And even what you're describing there of the stickiness helped you to slow down your speech so that you wouldn't go too fast and talk too fast and maybe slip over your words and stuff. That stickiness kept you able to articulate your words nice and slow and actually get your point across in a nice, slow, steady pace. You didn't panic. You didn't get in your own way. And you did a great job. So well done. Congratulations.
I'm not saying this to self-praise, but I'm just saying this so anyone's listening can
Yeah,
even think that, it's realize that it's not necessary to be fluent, effortless, to feel good.
yeah.
I thought that. And linking this to anxiety, um, what I found was when I did that, I, I, I didn't feel anxious. I wasn't apologetic, and I was just focused on. I was kind of of ultra focused on not deviating and not distracting anything. However, um, lately, whenever my phone rings and I see the name of well on the screen, if I see the name of my boss, I will block even when I say hello. So what I've been doing lately is not look at the phone when it rings and visualize that it's the switchboard. I just say hello and I'm fine. Now, in your view, is that is that me distracting myself, or should I look at it and face it? And
You're putting the techniques and stuff in to actually help yourself to be able to deal with this. So it's not distracting yourself. You know what you need to do to actually help yourself to actually be able to not stutter. And I mean that's all present tense techniques and stuff. That's you putting a plan in place that actually works for you. Like we all have, even I'm not perfect, we all have distractions, we all have things that we have to put into our way to actually help ourselves to actually get past our anxiety and stuff. So when I say I'm anxiety free, I have to work on myself every day. So there are different techniques that I've brought in that have actually helped me to stay anxiety free for the rest of my life. So that is a technique that you brought in that works for you. If you know anyone else that stutters and you say you do this, they go, oh, that wouldn't help me at all. So that's what works for you. So no, it's not a distraction.
um, coming back to anxiety generally, I have as a stutterer, that's one thing that causes me anxiety, but other things cause me anxiety as well. Um,
Mhm.
why is it that we are anxious for the future? For example, if we have an important meeting next month, or we're in the middle of litigation, court cases, we're waiting on medical test results, we had a health test, or all these things which and for example, if someone, for example, has been to the hospital and has some tests done, it's kind of natural to blow it out of proportion. What if this happens, or for example, if you're in a job and you're secure, and then you
Mhm.
start thinking, you know, what if this time next month I'm not as secure? What if I lose my job? Then this will happen, then that'll happen. As human beings, why why do we do that? I mean, what I've read is that I'm going to ask you, and I say, but what I've read is it's because in the past, in evolutionary terms, human beings who are wary and thought negatively, they generally survived because they could, because they've thought of every bad thing that can happen. But in the modern world, there's we don't need to be afraid of large animals or hurricanes or a scarcity of food. Why do we still carry 5,000, 10,000 years worth of fear with us?
Well, we still live in a world where there is a lot of fear. You know, you listen to the news, you watch the television, there's always constantly fear being brought up for us. It's probably been more drilled into us now than it was 5,000 years ago. So yeah, it is built in within us, but we now have a different type of fear. We have a fear, constant fear. There's constant fears going on around you all the time. There's fears, you hear people talking. There is outside forces of all these fears that are actually, so we're being constantly reminded of these fears. I don't watch television anymore. I don't listen to the news anymore. I don't listen to the radio anymore. So I've stepped out of wherever I notice places where fear could be created within me. I've stepped away from them. I don't have and we have a great terminology in psychotherapy. It's called catastrophization. So that's what you're actually talking about there. You're looking into the future and you're assuming that there will be a disaster movie happening. There definitely is going to be a disaster movie happening. One of the interesting things about that was a lot of my clients who pre-2018, 2019 had anxiety, when COVID hit, they never had anxiety ever again because they could never have thought that that worst case scenario would ever actually happen. I generally don't have anxiety because of it because they were like, oh, this is great and I can never, nothing bad could ever happen. So I feel that it is built into us, as you said, from the fight or flight type of aspect that we would have had in the caveman days and back into that. But it's being fueled so much these days by different programs that we watch, television that we watch, people talking on all these different social media platforms and stuff like that. And it's constantly fueling that fear. You're constantly being programmed into that kind of fear moving forward, thinking about actually worrying about things. As I said to someone recently, if there's a car accident 20 miles down the road from me here, and I don't know who they are, I don't care. And I've had to work hard at stepping into my present tense and not having that fear and worrying about it. So I don't catastrophize anymore. I don't fall into it. But what I do is when I do fall into it, I say to myself, okay, if I take that issue that I see happening in the future tense, I bring it into the present tense and actually write it down in the present tense and I look at it and I look at it and I actually say to myself, can this happen now? And more often than not, the answer is no. And then I go, okay, let it go. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, you know.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you
Okay.
very well, and you've also brought in modern fears which I didn't even think of.
Mm.
Uh, pandemics, bird flu, World War III, um, and if you watch the news, your mind will be filled with fear.
Yeah.
That's true. And I don't watch the news either. Um, and I don't. Well, all I read is intelligent commentary and analysis because at least the writer is being honest. This is my analysis.
Mhm.
It's not presented as news.
Mm.
This is I think it's all perspective, isn't it? So yeah, I like to read intelligent commentary in particular newspapers,
Mm.
Guardian, Telegraph, Observer, etc. Um, and I think and I think that helps me. The reason that helps me is because that puts things into perspective. Yes, World War III can happen, but it can also be averted if
Mhm.
leaders compromise and etc. etc. And or another pandemic can happen, or it can be averted if we, the nations work together, um, and and make sure that there's plan in place, etc. So, but it's not all. 30,000 people are going to fall ill, etc. So that's what helps me. But I think that constant fear which is being pushed, it can create subconscious anxiety and fear, which we don't even know, which is so. How would you propose dealing with under the radar fears, which we don't even know? I appreciate that we shouldn't bring the past up.
No, that's okay.
So I'm not talking about the past. I'm talking about going in deeper.
Yeah, but I
Makes
mean,
sense.
we operate at 10% in the conscious and 90% in the subconscious terrain anyhow. So I mean, we're down there all the time. We're down in that subconscious level anyhow. So tackling those subconscious things is again going back to what I talked about. It's about stepping into the body and allow yourself to actually feel those emotions in the present tense. Then you can start connecting. And one of the things I say to a lot of my clients is one of the greatest things I'll ever do for you is create awareness. And one of the worst things I'll ever do for you is create awareness. Because within that awareness, you start noticing these patterns. You start noticing these things that are actually have been happening all along at that subconscious level. You start noticing those fears. You become aware of the fact that, you know, you're attracted to a woman who reminds you of your mother, even though you hated your mother. You start becoming aware of all those patterns within you that have been repeating themselves over and over again. Those fears, you become aware of it. So the more you drop into your body and the more you become aware of yourself, you become aware of these fears. And it's very deep down. I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself, but still stuff still comes up. Some of my fears still come up because I suddenly go, oh, geez, I didn't realize I had fear of that. Oh, where did that come from? So it's about allowing yourself to step into your body and become aware of your feelings and emotions, and give yourself that space in the evening where you just sit down and you actually sit. You don't have to meditate. You can sit down and actually become aware of your feelings, of actually what was going on for you today. So it's taking more time with you and taking more time being with you and noticing your feelings and your emotions and your anxieties and your fears. And, as I say, with your fears and your anxieties and becoming aware, if it feels uncomfortable, you're doing the right thing.
No, no, that is that is um that is really interesting. That what you mentioned about sitting with yourself in the evenings. One thing I am guilty of is distraction in the evenings. Scrolling on my phone, not really reflecting. And I know I should reflect on the day and etc. etc. Which would be very very helpful and therapeutic. Is there something you do daily to maintain your equilibrium and calmness, etc., and just for your own mental health?
I remember reading an article a couple of years ago that when you're in gratitude, you can't be in anxiety. So I use gratitude all the time in my day. I notice things, I observe things that are happening around me, and I give thanks. And I thank whatever's going on. I always challenge myself every morning when I wake up to find 30 new things every day that I'm grateful for. And gratitude, get confused with gratitude, but gratitude can be, I'm so grateful that I have hot water. I'm so grateful that I have a carpet underneath my feet. And one of the great places to step into gratitude is, when things like, for my example, in the house that I'm living in now, I lived in an apartment before that was very, very cold. So now I have the awareness that when I have to turn on the heating or it's a warm house when I come home, I walk in and I go, such gratitude that it's actually nice and warm here. And it's the same with the carpet when I get out of bed. You know, it used to be bare floors before and it was cold. And when I put my feet on the ground when I wake up in the morning, I go, I'm so grateful for the carpet under my feet. And sometimes you can step into places like, you know, third world countries don't have running water. I'm so grateful for the water that's actually flowing out of the tap. I'm so grateful for this person being in my life. I'm so grateful that I have gratitude in my life. So I feel that one of the key things to actually do for yourself is to step into gratitude as often as you possibly can in your day. Notice the things around you. Say to people, I'm so grateful to have you in my life. I'm so grateful. If someone says something to you that's really nice, you go, thank you. And that is the key message that I want to get across. Step into gratitude, people. Step into you. And in gratitude, you feel it. You feel that happiness. You feel that joy. Who wouldn't want to stay present with those feelings of happiness and joy and pride and all the fantastic emotions that are going on for you in the present tense? So that is my trick and my what I actually do. And then, as I mentioned, I have my reflective piece in the evening. I put my phone into, I got one of those minimalistic phone things that only allows me a certain amount of time in all my different apps in a day. So I step away from it. So it's about allowing yourself to be you. The mobile phones are the greatest and the worst thing that ever happened. They're the worst because they do distract us from us. They do distract us from feeling our feelings and our emotions. Stop being so scared of you.
It's very, very interesting that you mentioned that, and that has reminded me of something that happened to me about 12, about 12 years ago. I out of the blue, I know I suffered some pain. I can't go into detail, but I suffered some pain. And I was taken to hospital. Um, and the pain wouldn't go. I stopped eating. I lost a lot of weight, and I was in hospital for a couple of weeks. They did all these tests, but they said that as far as we can see, you're absolutely fine. You're completely fine. We'll have to discharge you. The pain was still there. So I came home, and I remember going for a walk, and I just started repeating the words, thank you. Every time the pain flared, I said, thank you. Within about 4 hours, the pain was gone, and it's never returned. So I don't know what happened. Um, I just remember whenever I said thank you, but I said it with depth,
Mm.
and I said thank you because I feel pain and I know I'm alive, or whatever. And I was walking amongst the trees and and the birds. As soon as I was discharged, I walked. I was a skeleton. And the pain just went away. To this date, I don't know what that was, uh, but that is what happened, and I think that was also gratitude for for almost all for everything that happens to us. There's something to be thankful for. So I can't explain it medically,
No, that's okay.
and I
And
don't think anyone can.
that also brings it to you know, another thing that we are hardwired is us human beings are hardwired into negativity. We're pulled and dragged into negativity so much, and that has actually been proven. An awful lot of people have looked at it, and us human beings. And I've been asked this question many a time, and I feel that I've come to my answer to why we are. If we haven't experienced the negative, how do we appreciate the good? How do we appreciate the good things that happen in our life? So when things go wrong and don't actually work for us in the past, but they're working for us now, we can actually step into that gratitude and we can feel it. Whereas if we've nothing to compare it to, we don't know what we're feeling. So I find that very interesting, that we are that negativity. We can step into that negativity. But then I have huge gratitude when I can kind of, even for me around anxiety, I have huge gratitude around the fact that things that would have blocked me before, my anxiety used to revolve around, I could never go into, say, a restaurant if I'd never been in it before, because my anxiety used to say, where's the toilets? Is it table service, or do I have to go up and order? Lots of questions would come into my mind. So you might wonder, oh, how did you go into a restaurant, Shane? Well, if I went in with other people, I was fine, because then I'd know what was actually happening. So now when I go into a restaurant and just walk into a brand new restaurant that I've never been in my life, and I go in and I either sit down or I stand up, I go, "Oh, such gratitude that I'm able to do this, I have such gratitude that I am actually able to just do this,
Mhm. You know, I've remember the words of an old mentor, who I won't name, but he's in Scotland. When I spoke to him a couple of years ago, and he asked me to reflect on two questions, and the first question is, do you like being you? And the next question was, how does it feel like being you? So he asked me these questions, and I thought about it, and I was thinking of a complex answer. And he says, well, ask me these questions. So I asked him, do you like being you? His answer was, yes. And then, guess, so what's it like being you? He said, fantastic. Yeah, so he kept it simple. Um, and coming back to this particular question, what's it like being you? And he asked me this question 2 years ago, and I heard it, and I was quite superficial about it. So lately, I've been meditating on this question: what's it like being you? And Shane, hand on heart, I'm not exaggerating, but when I'm lying in bed thinking about what's it like being you, for the first time in my life, I've understood the question, and I feel that I can feel my body. I can feel my toes, my feet, my legs, groin, stomach, chest. Everything is just like vibrating with, pulsating with something. Um, and this is another thing I can't explain. I've given up trying to explain things, trying to understand things, why things happen. But the reason I'm telling you this is this takes me back to the beginning of the podcast when you talked about the present moment. When I ask myself the question, what's it like being you? I have to be present.
Mhm.
And when you're present, life vibrates differently.
Completely. 100% understand what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about, what I always observe is that when you're in the present moment, life always flows. It always flows. The universe helps you along the way. And that's where my motto is, like, when I'm in the present moment, my life always flows. And my life always flows. It always flows the way it's meant to flow. It always flows in whatever direction it's meant to flow. And I am so grateful, and I'm such thankfulness of actually having that. And you're right, when you give yourself that moment to actually sit with yourself and notice it. So it's like I do a Tai Chi practice, and within the Tai Chi Qigong practice is about feeling every part of your body, noticing. One of my favorite parts is the part where you're actually standing still with your eyes closed, and you notice the sway of your body, the natural sway of your body. And every time I do it, even though I've done it lots of times, I'm still taken to, wow, my body sways, my body moves, without me, you're just standing still with your eyes closed and your body rotates. you know? And it feels so fantastic to actually notice those feelings, those subtleties. So sometimes during the day when I'm feeling my mind starting to get pulled and dragged into the future, I'll stop and pause for a second. Now this could happen in the supermarket, and I close my eyes and I'll notice the sway in my body, and that'll bring me back to the present, and it'll bring me back into the now, you know? So I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think it was Eckhart Tolle who said that the future is created now, and when we get there, it's still the now.
Yeah.
So, it's Shane. It's been a real pleasure. Speaking with you, I've learned so much. I've learned so much about myself, which I didn't even remember or know.
Mm.
So you brought a lot out in me. You've instilled the importance of the present moment. To be honest, I'd forgotten that.
Mm.
I was lately. I've been very anxious about the future.
Okay.
I mean, not so much about the past because I don't think about the past as much as I did. But as I'm growing older, there is anxiety for the future
Mm.
because I don't have as many years ahead of me than I did before. But that's just life, and that's just as you say, catastrophizing about
Mm.
um
Stuff that's out of your control.
yeah, stuff that's out of my control. I mean, when I was younger, I was very excited about the future because I thought, it can only be better than the past.
Mm.
I'll find some cure for stuttering. I'll stop stuttering, become fluent, and then I'll get everything I want to. As I was growing older, that wasn't happening.
Mm.
I was still stuttering. And then I thought, okay, how about I try and get what I want with the stutter? I'll take the stutter with me. Um,
But
but,
it is who you are.
yeah, yeah, it's a part of me, and it's a part of me, and of course, acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation.
No.
Mm. I didn't make that one up, by the way. I read that somewhere. Um, but
Can I ask you how much time have you got ahead of you if you live in the present?
oh, if you're in the present, eternity. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's 365 days in a year, like.
Yeah.
So if you're living every single day of the year, every second,
Mm.
every minute,
Mm.
every hour of the day,
Yeah.
there's an abundance of time in front of you.
Yeah.
Time is time doesn't mean anything when you live in that place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that's absolutely. I'm 43 now. Now, looking back 43 years and seeing how fast they've gone.
Mm.
Now, thinking how fast the next 43 years will go, I'll be 86. And if you think of it that way, it can be quite scary. But
Mm.
but, but the way you say, the present is extended
Right.
infinitely.
Infinite, yeah. It's
Um,
beyond infinite.
and beyond infinity. I mean, you see these 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, and they're enjoying life.
Hmm.
You know, because at that stage you realize that, like, you've had your fun, you've seen everything anyway, and it's the nature of life to come to a natural end so that your place can be taken by others, etc., etc. But yeah, I mean, lately what I've been finding is, even if I don't have anxieties, I look for anxieties. I look for worries. If I'm not worried, I'm worried that I'm not worried. And but yeah, so I think your advice would is spot on.
Mm.
Um, on behalf of our listeners, etc., and myself, I'm very grateful that you've appeared on the podcast, and giving us your valuable time. You could have been anywhere on a Monday night, but you're here.
Mm.
So, so thank you very much. And I think people can contact you on the phone number you've got on screen, etc.
Yeah.
And your you have email and website as well.
Yeah. And on Instagram, I'm anxiety_expert.
And
They'll find me there easy enough.
anxiety.
So it's been an absolute, I've learned a lot as well. I've learned a lot about stuttering. I've learned a lot about you. So I'm so grateful. So thank you so much. So I wouldn't want to be anywhere else on this Monday evening, so thank you so much.
And I know I've said I'm grateful, but I'm also very I'm also honored by what you said at the end, that you would not be anywhere else. So
Yeah,
I'm humbled.
thank you.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and all the best, Sean.
Thanks very much.
Shane.